So this billing demonstration is meant to supplement your review of the Tariff and Billing Handbook because not every rule or scenario is going to be reviewed here. So today we're going to show you how to enter a civil account. So first we're going to log into our portal here, and your number might be different than this. That's okay. You just need to use your ID number to log into Legal Aid Online. And then when you sign in, this is your main homepage. So to create an account, you're going to click on Account at the top of the white area of the screen here. And then under the Civil Account heading, you're going to click on Create, Modify, or Review an Account. And it may just take a moment for that page to load for you. So when that does load, you'll see Civil Account at the top, and then you'll see two tabs. The pre-selected one is Add a New Account, and that's for obviously any new accounts that you need to create. You can click on Find an Existing Account to find any previously submitted accounts. There's a number of different search criteria options here, but what is pre-populated is the selection for adding a new account. To add a new account, you can enter the certificate number here, or there is a lookup on this magnifying glass icon where you can click on, and it will give you a list of all of your certificates that you can bill. For this, I'm just going to copy and paste my certificate number here and click Add. And it may just take a moment for the portal to load your account because it is a pre-made form. There we go. So here is what the account looks like when you create it. The first section up here is sort of pre-populated with all of the information for the certificate itself, including your issue date, effective date. The account date is going to show up as the day that you create the account. If you're unable to complete the account and must save a draft, you should know that you should know that any changes that are made on the actual certificate itself will not populate onto your saved draft account. So for example, if you're granted an additional authorization or more hours are added onto the certificate after you've saved that draft, that new authorization is not going to appear on your draft account, and our automated payment system will not apply the additional tariff to that account. So we always recommend, if you are waiting for an authorization or an invoice, it is best not to create an account yet. The next portion here is called basic account information. So the first question that is asked here is, will you be billing additional services or disbursements under this certificate? So if you plan on submitting additional accounts, you will need to select yes, and then your account type will be the next selection that you make here. So if you answered yes, that you are going to be submitting further accounts, your account type here is going to be interim. If you've selected no, then you have to select final as your account type. Once a final account has been billed and maybe you need to submit a further account for a disbursement, you will be able to create that account, but the only account type available to select will be supplementary. That doesn't appear until after you have selected final account and submitted that final account. The next questions here are your first and last date of service. So the date that you enter here for your first and last date of service should be the first date for this account. So for example, if you've submitted a previous account, you don't want to make your first date of service on this account the first date of service that you ever worked for the client. You're going to want to submit this for the first date of service for the time period that you've docketed and that you're actually billing for this account. Here you can also either enter the date manually, or you can click on this calendar option to select your dates. If you click on the question marks, just so that you're aware, there are these question marks throughout the account. If you click on these question marks, you will be taken to a page that will give you some information on that section of the account. So it will sort of give you some information on this section for you. And then you can just select done when you're finished reading that, and it will take you back to your account page. So to note as well, legal aid will allow lawyers to bill for services up to 30 days prior to the effective date where there was no private retainer received. You are not authorized to provide certificate services more than 30 days prior to the effective date. However, if you have provided services more than 30 days prior to the effective date, you can request that LAO backdate the certificate in accordance with Section 50 of the Legal Aid Service Rules, where the legal aid services were provided in an urgent situation and notice that the services were provided was delivered to the corporation within a reasonable time after they were provided. The individual would have qualified for legal aid services at the time that the services were provided. No previous application for the same legal aid services had been refused, and the lawyer has not offered or accepted a private retainer or other payment or benefit for the legal aid services. You can submit that request for backdating under your certificate tab in the portal by selecting Submit Certificate Coverage Materials. Your request itself should address the factors listed in Section 50. So for this, I am actually using a sort of previous or sample docket, and I am going to enter the first date of service here as December the 24th of 2024. So I've entered that here, and it does need to be month, day, year as shown here. Your last date of service needs to be the last date of service that you are billing for this account. And that should also correspond with your last date of service on your detailed account or your docket, which you will be attaching to your account. You can again either enter this manually or select the calendar option here. So to show you the calendar, I'm going to select my last date of service as April 7th of 2025, and it will populate it there for you. The next section of the account is determining the applicable tariff maximum. So this section lists all of your authorizations. You'll see them right here. It looks like a table. And you can see I'm highlighting it in yellow as I go through those lines. So that will list all of the authorizations that you currently have on your certificate. We ask that you please ensure that you are only providing services that are authorized on the certificate. For example, this certificate doesn't have any authorizations for property issues or attendance at a trial. So if you have provided services that are not authorized, you should not proceed any further with the account. You should click on the home button in the top right corner here. I'm just circling it here with my cursor. If you click on that home button, you're going to get a save warning that asks if you want to save your changes. You can select yes so that you can go back to the account and click save or continue the account, or you can select no to discard the changes. Since I'm going to continue with this account, I'm going to select yes. So that is just the save warning that you're going to get to show you there. So as indicated earlier, any new authorizations granted after the draft is saved is not going to populate to the draft account, and the system will not apply that applicable tariff. So we do again recommend not to save any drafts. You'll need to contact centralized services in writing to request the necessary authorization for additional hours. Once you have received the authorization, you can enter an account for those services. The only exception to this rule is if you are facing a billing deadline. So if you're concerned that a billing deadline is approaching, submit the account without authorization and then immediately seek the authorization from centralized services. Once received, you can advise lawyer services and payments in writing that you've been granted that authorization for those services to avoid those services being denied payment. Billing for attendance time and subsequent attendances. Certain authorizations allow for billing attendance time and for additional days in court. Please ensure that your detailed dockets accurately specify the nature of each court attendance. A failure to do this could result in payment being denied. Where the tariff allows for additional preparation time for subsequent hearing days, the additional hours only become available to be billed once the subsequent hearing has occurred. So you can't bill it like in advance. If the matter is adjourned or is resolved prior to the subsequent hearing day, no additional tariff is going to be granted because that hearing did not take place. You do not enter adjournments in either the extra days column or the hours in court column. Doing so would generate an overpayment or an inflation of your tariff. So anything to do with an adjournment would not be considered an extra day of court. If no other tariff remains, you will need to request discretion for that preparation time. Entering subsequent case conferences, settlement conferences, or trial management conferences, or LAO scheduled conferences. Billing for the subsequent case conferences is one of our most common billing errors that can be made by counsel. It is very important that you understand how to enter these services accurately, as our billing system is programmed to pay up to the tariff maximum without being reviewed manually by staff. This then essentially allows counsel to generate their own payments. If you are overpaid as a result of an incorrect entry, you will be required to repay legal aid for that overpayment. For the case conference or settlement conference authorization, both the attendance and preparation for your first conference, settlement conference, trial management, or LAO scheduled conference is covered by this authorization here on line 2 that reads preparation and attend, including negotiations with opposing counsel at each conference under Rule 17 of the Family Law Rules and at each legal aid settlement conference, tariff maximum of 5 hours. Only enter additional days for second and subsequent case conferences. And on that line, you can see there is only one additional field where you may be able to enter, and that is number of extra days. This number of extra days field generates an additional 5 hours for both preparation and court time combined. When you're billing for your first case conference, so if you've only had one and you are billing for the time period that only includes that one case conference, you do not need to enter anything in this extra days of court box. And that is because this 5 hours here is already included in your tariff maximum. You do not need to generate an additional 5 hours for your first case conference. For your second and subsequent case conferences, you would enter the number of case conferences that you attended during the time period covered by the account. It's important to know that that number is not a cumulative number. So if you're on case conference number 5, you're not going to enter 5 if you only attended the 5th case conference during this account period. You would only enter 1. This is not a cumulative number. It's the number of conferences that you attended during this account billing period or during these 2 service dates. So if your preparation and attendance time billed for the conferences is less than the 5 hours that is allotted or allowed on the certificate, you are able to use any of those remaining tariff hours for any of the other services that are covered on the certificate. So as an example for your extra days of court here, so if you have attended 2 or more conferences during the account period that you're billing for, you would need to enter your number of extra days as your second, third, etc. Again, first case conference does not need to be included. I have listed here in my dockets that I'm referring to that there were a total of 3 case conferences. And because one had not yet been billed for this example, I am going to enter 2 additional case conference days so that there is a total of 3. So the first will be covered by this here, and then entering 2 will generate additional tariff maximum for you. If, for example, you had trial authorized on this certificate, you would have both the extra days of court and hours in court available for you. So with trial, preparation for the first day of trial is covered within the initial authorization, but any additional days of trial that you attend, so days 2 and onward, are entered in the same manner. So you would enter the number of extra days that you attended for the trial, and your court time is also in addition to that authorization. So your court time will be entered there. So for example, if on your first account, you're going to be billing for 3 days of trial and you spent 5 hours in court on each of those days, you would enter a 2 for your additional days of court and 15 hours for your hours in court time. A note on attendance time, if you are billing for it, attendance time may only be billed if the matter is reached, evidence led, and or submissions are made. So this does not include submissions in support of or opposing an adjournment. Attendance time does not include attending for adjournments, postponements, to be spoken to, or trial audits or assignment court. These attendances are treated as preparation time and need to be billed separately. So in order to determine your available tariff on a certificate, you will need to add up the authorizations that are listed here. So the authorizations listed here, there are 4 lines of authorizations. They do total 29 hours. Our first line here for your family law issues is 16 hours. Your second line here for prep and attendance at case conferences is 5 hours. And then there are 2 separate lines of 4 hours each for the issue of a restraining order. So if you add all of those up, the total is 29 hours. And as we mentioned earlier, some authorizations have the ability to generate a further tariff. So beside the authorizations where this extra days of court are, you have 2 extra days. That is going to be 2 multiplied by this 5-hour allotment. So for this example, again, we have entered 2 in this extra days of court. That actually generates an additional 10 hours of tariff. So we have a total of that initial 29 hours plus our extra days for conferences at 5 hours each, totaling 10 hours, which means 39 hours is available as your tariff. If you were billing in excess of this 39 hours total, you would need to seek either additional authorizations for your contested issues on this matter or request discretion if no additional authorizations are available. Moving then to the next section of the account, which is called total hours billed. You will see that the acknowledging lawyer or your solicitor number is going to be listed here, as well as your name. Right now I'm in a training environment, so it will show demonstration and not an actual name. Each of the service providers on your account will need to be entered separately. And their hours worked will need to be entered separately. So you can click on this plus sign if you were adding another line for another service provider on this. So in order to enter or bill for another lawyer's time, you must have their legal aid roster number. You are not allowed to bill for services of lawyers who are not on the legal aid roster. A law student who is not an articling student under formal articles of clerkship, the experiential component of the law practice program, or integrated practice curriculum must be billed as a law clerk. Once an articling student or LPP student is called to the bar and obtains a license to practice in Ontario, they are prohibited from providing legal aid services or submitting accounts as a student or a law clerk. An individual who holds a license to practice law and wishes to provide legal aid services must apply and be approved for roster membership before providing any legal aid services or submitting any accounts for legal aid services, and they cannot be paid for services provided until their application is approved. You can see our Better Billing Bulletin, issue number 58, which was issued June 17th of 2024 for more information on that. If you have a paralegal that assisted with any work on this file, you are able to bill them as a law clerk. The total hours billed on your docket should add up to your total hours worked that you're entering into this account. So for example, on this account, I'm going to bill a total of 18 hours for counsel. And I am just going to enter a student. They do not need a roster number. You would just bill them as student or law clerk if it was a law clerk. And I am going to enter their hours as 2 hours and click on calculate. When you click on calculate, you will see that our program automatically recalculates the articling student or law clerk's hours for payment purposes by dividing the total number of hours that they worked by 3 in accordance with the legal aid tariff. They will still be paid for their rate at the total of 2 hours. However, for the purposes of your tariff maximum, i.e. the number of hours used on the certificate, it is divided by 3. So that is what is calculated there. The next section here is in regards to private retainers. So if you were privately retained by the client or by another third party to perform services for the client with respect to the same matter or any related matter or any ancillary matter before or after the effective date of the certificate, you will need to select yes and then enter the total amount that you received as a retainer. If you were retained on a pro bono basis, you can enter 0 in this field. If you have represented the client on a private retainer, you must attach a copy of your dockets and a copy of your trust ledger to your account. You only need to report your private retainer on your first account. If you have subsequent accounts that you're submitting, you do not need to report the same private retainer on every account, as that will delay payment. For this, I will select no. There is another question here that indicates I am also representing the client on another certificate. So if you are representing the client on multiple certificates, you are able to enter their other certificate number here, and you should do so. The next section deals with any funds received. So that's what this table is here for. So notes on the funds received. By virtue of Section 12 of the Legal Aid Services Act, all costs ordered by a court to be paid to an individual who has received legal aid services are the property of the corporation and shall be paid to the corporation. Section 13 of LASA creates a charge on any judgment, order, settlement recovered by the client in the amount of the total cost of the legal aid services provided to the client and must be paid to Legal Aid Ontario. This charge applies to settlements both for support and property. Upon receipt of any settlement funds, you must immediately notify LAO that you have received the funds. Any money received should be held in trust pending receipt of instructions from the Lawyer Services and Payments Department. Under no circumstances should money be released to the client without prior authorization from legal aid. For more information on costs and settlements, you can consult the Tariff and Billing Handbook. So there's 2 sections of this funds received section of your account. Each has a yes and no selection. So you can click yes if a cost order or settlement was made in your client's favor. Enter the amount of the cost award and or the settlement or judgment in the fields when they populate for you to enter them. So if you did have an amount awarded, you can enter that here. If funds have been received, you would enter that in your amount in trust box. If you have not received any funds, you can enter 0 in this amount. That is okay. You do not enter any costs or settlements for which your client was ordered to pay. Once you've reported a settlement or cost award, do not enter that same award on subsequent accounts. Subsequent accounts, you can select no unless a new award or judgment has been made. Please note that you must enter yes to the question if a settlement was made in your client's favor as of the date of submitting your account, not the last date of services as noted on the account. So for example, if a settlement had been made and it was between April and my account date of July, I would still need to enter that that had been made. So if a settlement has been reached in your client's favor, the settlement has not been disclosed to LAO, and you do not intend to submit a further account to LAO disclosing that settlement, please contact Lawyer Services and Payments in writing. Just provide them a letter immediately to advise of that settlement. The next section of the account here is titled Special Disbursements. Special disbursements are those that require prior authorization from legal aid prior to the expense being incurred. If you're unsure if the payment or if you're unsure if the disbursement you intend on incurring requires authorization, please consult our disbursements handbook. For this demonstration, I'm just going to show you the area of the account. So the first section is a table that is titled Prior Special Disbursements. This is going to display a list of any previously billed disbursements. So anything that you have submitted on previous accounts is going to show here as a cumulative list. The next section here, which on this demonstration does not have anything, but it is still listed. If a disbursement has been approved, it is going to appear in this section. There's going to be a table with separate lines for each of those approved disbursements. Do not bill in excess of the quantity, rate, or amount authorized, as this is going to prevent the account from being paid automatically and will create a delay in the payment or the processing of the account. If you require an increase or a change to the amount that was authorized, please request this in writing from Lawyer Services and Payments prior to billing. When you're billing special disbursements, do not include the taxes when billing, as our system is programmed to automatically add the tax later on in the summary portion of the account. Regular disbursements is the next section here. These are disbursements that you can incur without requesting an authorization. So you can check the disbursement handbook to be sure that the type of disbursement is allowed for the type of case that you're billing. Most disbursements also have limits on the amounts that can be billed. The limits are displayed in the disbursements window that opens once you click on the Add Disbursements link and can also be found in the disbursements handbook. You must request authorization in writing from Lawyer Services and Payments prior to billing disbursements which may have exceeded the amount that is allowed of regular disbursements. You would follow the same procedure for special disbursements to seek authorization for disbursements which exceed the set limits. And please ensure that the invoices for your disbursements comply with our policies. Again, there is a table here for your prior regular disbursements that's going to list your cumulative total disbursements that you've billed on previous accounts. To add a disbursement, there is this table that says just disbursements at it. You're going to click on this Add Disbursements link. When you do that, you're going to be taken to a page that has all of these different types of disbursements here for you. I'm going to select Courier, and I'm also going to select some language interpreters here for the purposes of this account, just to show you. You click Add and Return, and once you've done that, you will see that they have been added to this table. For your courier, there is no quantity or unit price. It is just the total amount. Again, do not include your taxes on this, so you can enter your amount here. When it comes to language interpreters, the quantity field is going to be pre-populated and the unit price or the hourly rate is going to be pre-populated as well. We do allow for interpreter to be billed. So for this, if you have 1 hour, it's going to calculate it at that rate. So for your first hour of each meeting, I should say. So the rate here for that is $31.40 as your maximum rate that we will pay for the interpreter's first hour of interpretation for a client meeting. For any second or subsequent hour of the same meeting, we will pay $19.20. So I'm just going to have those populated here as 1 hour for each of those. You will also see that all of the maximums are listed here in brackets beside the disbursements that you have selected. Although you're not required to attach any of your disbursement invoices, you are required to retain those invoices and produce them if legal aid requests them. It is a good practice, though, to attach your invoices to the account, as this would avoid a delay in your payment if we need to review any of your invoices. When you click the Calculate button here in the summary section, which is next, you will see that it will calculate your total disbursements as well as your HST. Below the summary section, there is a question here that asks if you are requesting a discretionary increase. You will need to select an answer for this in order to submit the account. If you are requesting a discretionary increase because you are over the tariff maximum and you have been authorized all of the additional hours that may be available for the certificate, make sure that you select yes. And it's going to give you this pop-up menu that asks you to attach a detailed explanation. There are forms on our external website to do this. For this purpose, you do not need to put your entire discretion request in this discretionary increase comment. You would just enter, please see attached. I am not requesting discretion on this account, so I will select no. The next section here is attachments. Dockets need to be attached to every account that you're submitting where there are fees billed. So first you'll need to select the appropriate choice from the drop-down menu under attachment type. So for this, I will select dockets. And then the next step to attach your dockets is going to be to select this attach paperclip icon. You're going to get this pop-up box that asks you to choose your file. I am going to choose my file here. And once I select it, it will show up and you select upload. It may just take a moment for the system to upload your document for you. There we go. So now it is attached. You can add a new file if you have additional attachments to make. If you selected the incorrect file, you can delete that and start over. You can also click on this view attachment to ensure that it is the correct attachment that was submitted. The final section is your submitted by acknowledging lawyer or submitted by and the information of that person. So the person submitting the account is required to identify themselves. If you're the acknowledging lawyer, you just need to select the submitted by acknowledging lawyer option there. If the account is being submitted by an employee or law clerk, LAW, something like that, they need to provide their name, their phone number, and their email. Note that it is the responsibility of the acknowledging lawyer to review the online account and attach dockets prior to the account being submitted. If the lawyer has not reviewed that account, you can select save to save a draft. If you are complete, if the account is complete and all they need to do is review, they can go through, review it, and then select submit. If it does not need to be reviewed by the lawyer, or the lawyer has already reviewed it, or you're the lawyer who is submitting the account, just select this, and then you can select submit on this, and the account will be submitted. You will receive a confirmation of the account submission for your records if you would like that. And then it will allow you to return to this account and print off a copy if you need a copy, or print off a printer-friendly version for your client, which would need to be provided to the client. That is the conclusion of the demonstration at this point.